تكبير
الله أكبر
نعرة رسالة
يا رسول الله
نعرة حيدري
يا علي
حيدري
يا علي
محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलावत Mu'minin, this is a humble request. If your mobile phones are switched on, can you please switch them off or put them on silent? Bar Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad salawat.
صلوات نعرة تكبير نعرة رسالة
يا رسول الله
نعرة حیدری
يا علي
रुमाल है इसको से भिगोने के लिए रुमाल है इसको से भिगोने के लिए ये रातें ये दिन नहीं है सोने के लिए ये रातें ये दिन नहीं है सोने के लिए हंसने के लिए तो साल भर है यारो हंसने के लिए तो साल भर है यारो 10 रोज मुहर्रम के हैं रोने के लिए सलवात
صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز فوزا عظيما قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل سيروا في الأرض ثم انظروا كيف كان عاقبة المكذبين. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Karbala, the peak of the existence of Imam al-Hussain, and indeed the highlight of his life. There's no doubt that it was none other than Karbala that led to the preservation of the religion of Islam. And it was this event that allowed you and I 1400 years later to use our tongues and say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. It was because of that event, thousands of miles away from Karbala, on this day, there are millions of majalis established in the remembrance of Abu Abdullah. Children wearing black, men putting everything on the side, women attending, all to shed a tear and to take a lesson from the school of Karbala. That everything we have is from Karbala. As grand scholars such as Ayatollah al-Khomeini said, everything we have is from Karbala. That yes, Karbala was great. Karbala was pivotal. Karbala is what preserved the religion of Islam. Yet a question needs to be posed, which will be the basis of these nights, which is, who was Hussain other than Karbala? What do we know about the life of Abu Abdullah other than the 5 hours that took place on the 10th of Muharram? Today, if you were to go to a child and ask him, Hussein, what do you know about him? 99.9% the reply will be Karbala. Is Karbala the only event in the life of Imam Hussein? Or are there other events which we can extract lessons from? So the first question which I want to look at tonight as an introductory lecture to the upcoming 11 nights is, why should we look at the life of Imam Hussein beyond Karbala? Why? About 6 reasons. The first reason we should look at the life of Imam al-Hussein beyond Karbala is so that we don't limit the life of the Imam. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says that the life of Abu Abdullah was 58 years, not 5 hours. Therefore, the first reason we want to look at the life of the Imam beyond Karbala is so that we don't do an injustice to the life of the Imam. Imam had an unbelievable life, 58 years. For goodness sake, his imamate on its own was 12 years. How much do you know about the imamate of the Imam? We don't want to do an injustice to the life of the Imam. That when Shaheed Murtada Mutahari comes and says that Hussein was killed twice, once in Karbala and once on the pulpits of the Shia. Why, O Shaheed? Because yes, we might present the Imam in a cultural fashion, yet one of the most fundamental reasons that Imam has had an injustice done to him is that we don't look at the life of the Imam beyond Karbala. Hussein the youth. Who was Hussein the youth? Who was Hussein the brother? Who was Hussein the son? All of these are what? Necessary shades of Abu Abdullah that we need to look at. That when I say we can't do an injustice to the Imam, in what sense? The Imam had a life. Why do we limit the Imam? Let me give you about 3 stages of limitations that we've made. We've limited Hussein to Karbala. We've limited Karbala to emotions. And we've limited our emotions to sadness. Number 1, we limited Hussein to Karbala. Hussein's life far extended Karbala. Karbala, yes, was the main segment of the life of the Imam. Today you watch a movie, there are main segments. Yet to understand, you can't go to a movie and just watch the ending. Abu Abdullah, his ending was pivotal, it was necessary, it was fundamental. Yet to understand it, we can't do a limitation. We've limited, number 1, Hussein to Karbala. We've limited Karbala to what? To emotions. Today you go to many places. Karbala has been simply has been minimized to a tear or to a strike. That's what Karbala is. Karbala, the event that 124,000 prophets were shed tears upon. The event that Ibrahim would be walking one day, he trips, falls and bleeds. He turns to Allah, he tells him, Ya Allah, why do I bleed? Did I do anything wrong? I'm your Khalil. He said, you've done nothing wrong. Yet you fell on a place where a man by the name of Hussein will fall. I want your blood to mix with his. We've limited Karbala to what? To Hussein to Karbala. And then you limited Karbala to what? To emotions. And you limited the emotions simply to sadness. You say, what do you want me to laugh when it comes to Karbala? No. Yet that sadness, which is an emotion, must be channeled in a practical fashion. For example, there will be a night where we speak about blood donating, for example. That is a practical way of channeling the message of the Imam, who is Hussein. For example, campaigns. Take a bottle, put on it what Hussein is, give it to the non-Muslim. Foundations, charity. These are all practical ways of channeling that sadness. That yes, Karbala, is it a tear? It's the richest of tear, yes. And it's the most relaxing of tear. And it's the most, in other words, the most tear I can extract lessons from is the tear that is shed upon Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Otherwise, why do we have a hadith that come and say, he who cries about Hussein, Jannah is his? Huh? If you cry about your car, you don't go to Jannah. If you cry about your mother who just left, you don't go to Jannah. If you cry, for example, upon money which has been stolen from you, you don't go to Jannah. Notice the difference between the Hussaini tier and between every other tier. The Hussaini tier is the ticket to Jannah. No other tier gives you ticket to Jannah except the tier that's shed upon the son of Fatima. Why? Because that tier is a rich tier. It's a tier with lessons. It's a tier that teaches you haqq from batil. It's a tier that comes and tells you rise against evil. It's a tier that comes and tells you wherever you are, don't stand in front of oppression. It's a tier that comes and tells you that a man died with 72 versus 30,000, so he doesn't compromise his beliefs. Therefore, this tier should teach you, don't compromise your beliefs. All of that has been summarized into the tier. Therefore, is Karbala a tier? Yes, and it's the best of tiers. You know what Khomeini says? He says they call us a nation of tears, but with these tears we overthrew a nation. Tears is what? It's a fuel. Sahib al-Zaman will fuel off the tears which are said about the son of Fatima. That yes, is it an emotion? No doubt. Yeah, is it simply an emotion? No. So there are degrees of limitations that we have, in other words, implemented on the musibah of Abu Abdullah. So the first reason we look at Hussain beyond Karbala is so that we don't be ones who kill Hussain. So that we're not ones that limit the message, and in other words, the life, the 58-year life of Hussain, not the 5-hour life of Hussain. That's the first reason. The second reason is a historical reason, which is to know what Karbala is by knowing what led to Karbala. As I said, you can't watch the ending of a movie alone. You have to watch the full movie to see what led up to it. When there's a fight and you go to a judge, the judge asks you what escalated the fight. What caused the fight? What did you say that instigated him? Yes? To understand Karbala, the event, the 58 years that... Now some of you may be thinking, simply when the Imam was in Medina, that led to Karbala. When the Imam was in Mecca. You know when you need to start to understand Karbala? From Adam. Not Medina. Not Mecca. The first tear that was shed about Hussain was the tear of Adam alayhi salam. You have to rewind. Therefore, there are events that led to Karbala. To understand the event, and you will see throughout these nights how when you put it in context, the event makes more sense. I think it's sad that Muharram after Muharram we've simply looked at the 5 hours of Karbala. Karbala was from Subh to Dhuhr. We've looked at simply the 5 hours. There are events that led up to that tragedy. And once you put the pieces of the puzzle together, the whole puzzle begins to make sense. That the second reason is so that we know what led to Karbala. That's the second reason. The third reason is to see Hussain in all of his colors. Do you know what color we've limited Abu Abdullah to? Hussain the warrior. That's all he is. Hussain was the greatest of youths. Who is Hussain? Today's youth. Do you know what's one of the biggest problems in the life of a youth? He doesn't know who to look up to. Society is giving him the singer. Society is giving him the athlete. Society is giving him the dancer. Society is giving him the rapper. Society is giving him the soccer player, for example. Who is he going to look up to? One of the reasons he hasn't been able to connect with Hussain ibn Ali, the youth, is because you and I haven't presented that perception of Hussain. Hussain is a rainbow. You can't just take the color green because you like it and it meshes with your cultural standards. When you look at the rainbow of Hussain, one color was Hussain the warrior. Key word, one color. Hussain was a youth. What did he do throughout his youth? And we'll speak about. What did he do throughout his role in the imamat of Ali ibn Abi Talib, Hussain the son? What was the image of Hussain the son? What was he? Who was Hussain the brother? What did Hussain do in the time of Imam Hassan? What was he doing? Was he sitting home? He had a role. In the time of Ali ibn Abi Talib, Hussain had the utmost important role. What was he doing? This, we need to look at why. To see Hussain in all of his colors. You know what we've done? It's like you take a pencil and you begin to draw only the arm of Hussain. Only the arm. For years, some just know the arm. Draw the full picture to see who was this man that Adam cried about? Who was this man that Ibrahim fell in blood about? Who was this man that Sahib al-Zaman will come and one slogan will be his, which is, "Oh, for the vengeance of this man"? Who was he? We know simply the arm. There are colors to Abu Abdullah. These colors we need to look at. Hussain the youth, Hussain the brother, Hussain the son, and so on and so forth. That number 3, to see Hussain in all of his colors. Number 4, which is very important, to see what made Hussain Hussain. You and I know Hussain the product. Do we know Hussain the process? Hussain the product. 10th of Muharram was the product. 58 years was the process. What made Hussain Hussain? Some may say, why should we look at what made him? I'm just interested with the product. When you see a professional and you want to be like him, can you simply look at his product? For example, I want to be like so-and-so athlete. Can I simply look at once he kicked the ball? Or should I look at what were the exercises he did which allowed him to kick the ball in such a way? In other words, there's a process to be studied when studying greats. The product was there. Yet what made Hussain Hussain? So that you and I can be like Hussain. Notice the verse I began with. Allah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ ثُمَّ انظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Allah said, travel and see what was the end results of the liars. What is Allah saying? He's saying study history in a way which makes you better. Study history in a way that when you leave the majlis, you can ask yourself, okay, that was a nice story, that was a nice saga, that was a nice musibah, yet I don't live in the era of Hussain. You know what Allah says in the Quran? He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, تِلْكَ أُمَّةٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلَهَا مَا كَسَبَتْ وَلَكُمْ مَا كَسَبْتُمْ وَلَا تُسْأَلُنَّ عَمَّا كَانُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. Allah says, that was a nation that left. To it is what it gained, and to you is what you gained. You wouldn't be asked about what they did. What is Allah saying? Musa did good. You're not going to get 1 point of ajr for what Musa did. Fir'aun did bad. You won't get 1 sin for what Fir'aun did. تِلْكَ أُمَّةٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِ. This was a nation that left. Far gone is Fir'aun. Far gone is Musa. Far gone is Hussain. Meaning, you will not gain 1 reward from what Hussain did. You won't. You won't gain 1 sin from what Yazid ibn Muawiyah did. In other words, when I study Hussain as a process to be studied and not a product to be adored, I then can say that process led to Hussein. Let me follow that process. Possibly I can be not a Hussein, but the greatest I can be, like Hussein was. When I see how he dealt with his father, I know how I can deal with my father. When I see how Hussein dealt with his brother, I know how I can deal with my brother. When I see how Hussein's relationship with Allah was, Hussein the Gnostic, I can see what the role of Allah is in my life to be a great human being. That process, once it's studied, I can now begin to introspectively look at the message of Imam al-Hussein. Not simply in an external fashion, but indeed in an internal fashion. Then number 4, I see what made Hussein Hussein, so that I can be the best I can, like Hussein was. That's number 4. The 5th reason we want to look at throughout these nights, Hussein beyond Karbala, is so that we realize something, which is Muharram is not just a time to mourn the martyrdom of Hussein. It's a time to celebrate the life of Hussein. Muharram is not a time simply to mourn the martyrdom of Hussein. It's a time to celebrate his life. Yes or no? Funerals, unfortunately, have become a function to mourn the one who has left us. When it comes to these nights, when I say we're going to mourn Hussein, that comes for the last 10 minutes, which is so vital and so important. Yet, Muharram is a time as well to celebrate the life of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, to celebrate his youthfulness, to celebrate his relationship with his father, to celebrate his relationship with Allah, to celebrate Hussein the intellectual, which we'll look at, to celebrate these events, yes, until we come on the last night, which we'll look at, Hussein what? Hussein today. We're going to look at everything besides Karbala. That's for the 10th of Muharram, where we recite the Maqtal. We're going to try to look at everything excluding Karbala. Inshallah, we know somewhat of Karbala because possibly for some of us 30, 40, 50, 60 years we've been hearing about it. And until then, we still don't understand Karbala because it's an infinite ocean. Yet, in order to see Karbala, an idea that it will make more sense, we will look at everything besides Karbala in an attempt to have Karbala make more sense, and in an attempt to celebrate his life. That's number 5. Number 6, which is so that we realize Karbala didn't make Hussein. Hussein made Karbala. Karbala didn't add nothing to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. It didn't add one iota to his greatness. Today we have people who give you a whole lecture about the greatness of Karbala, the land. He'll write poems about the greatness of the land, which is great. Anything about Abu Abdullah is great. Yet there's a sense of misunderstanding there. Hussein didn't go to Karbala. Karbala came to Hussein. Hussein didn't honor, in other words, Karbala didn't honor Hussein. Hussein honored Karbala. Karbala didn't make Hussein great. Hussein is what made Karbala great. Because there is no universe without God. You agree? There is no universe without God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this universe. There's no universe without God. There is no Quran without Itra. Make sense? There's no Quran without Itra. Rasulullah says, وَإِنَّهُمَا لَن يَفْتَرِقَا حَتَّى يَرِدَ عَلَيَ الْحَوْض. Yes or no? Rasulullah says, Ahl al-Bayt and Quran will never separate. SubhanAllah, today the world has separated them. These two entities will never separate until what? Until they return to me, to Hawd al-Kawthar. There is no universe without God. There is no Quran without Itra. There is no life without Muhammad. Quran comes and says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اسْتَجِيبُوا لِلَّهِ وَلِلرَّسُولِ إِذَا دَعَاكُمْ لِمَا يُحْيِيكُمْ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِهِ. Allah comes and says, reply to the call of Rasulullah, to that which brings you life. Rasulullah gives life. There is no life without Muhammad, and there is no Karbala without Hussain. There is no universe without God. There is no life without Muhammad. There is no Quran without Itra. And there is no Karbala without Abu Abdullah al-Hussain. Meaning, Karbala is honorable. Karbala is a land of prestige simply because of the man that lays on its sands, not because of the sands itself. To simply examine the land is a complete misunderstanding of the message of the Imam. Yet the Imam is what added greatness to the lands of Karbala, yes? That we come and we look at Imam Hussain alayhi salam's life. Why? Because he is the one who added greatness to Karbala. Karbala did not add greatness to the Imam. Therefore, to simply mourn Karbala without realizing that it was only one piece that made the land worthy of being mentioned, yes or no, is Abu Abdullah. You then therefore have to realize that you have to look at Karbala to understand these notions, or to look at Hussain to understand these notions. These 6 points are why we want to look at Hussain beyond Karbala. We'll begin with his birth tomorrow, and we'll end with where is Hussain today. We're going to look at the following features. Hussain before his birth. What was Hussain before his birth? He was a light, just like Fatima al-Zahra was a light beneath the throne of Allah Azza wa Jal. Hadith comes and says, Fatima hiya nurun tahta arshillah. Fatima is a light beneath the throne of Allah. That just as Fatima was a light beneath the throne of Allah, Abu Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi salam is a light. He's a misbah al-huda wa safinatul najat. Hadith comes and says, today you go to Arshillah, you go to the throne of Allah. It's written on the right of the throne of Allah, Inna al-Hussain misbahu hudan wa safinatu najat. Hussain is the ship of salvation and the lantern of guidance. Misbah, huda. He was a light. He's nur. To the extent that when shimmer would come to the body of the Imam, he would see light emanating from his face. Subhanallah. You know what shimmer says? Shimmer says, I was distracted by the light emanating from Abu Abdullah. Shimmer. It was that light that made Umar ibn Sa'd cry on the 10th of Muharram. You know that. Zainab would see him crying. She tells him, why do you cry? She would tell him, bring relaxation to him. Arihuh. He would say, bring relaxation. Would you bring a cup of water? Would you bring a blanket? No. He would command Shimmer to come and remove the head of Abu Abdullah. He was a light. تحت عرش الله. That was Hussain before his birth. Hussein also has to be looked at after his martyrdom. Usually the Ahl al-Bayt, unlike you and I, their beginning wasn't their birth, and their end wasn't their martyrdom. For goodness sake, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would say, I created everything in love of these five. Have we recited Hadith al-Kisa? إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري. What, Ya Allah? What about the moon? What about the sky? What about the stars? What about the universe? What about the water? What about them, Ya Allah? إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة. Except for the love of these five individuals that are there sitting beneath the cloak. I created nothing except for them. Allah didn't create the universe so that, or in other words, Allah didn't create Al-Muhammad so that they can live in this universe. Allah simply created this universe so it can be a cradle for Al-Muhammad. You with me? Allah didn't create Ahlul Bayt so that they can enter this universe. Allah created you and I so we can live, so we can exist, so we can worship Him. So He created me to enter the realm of this world. Yet He didn't create Ahlul Bayt to live in the realm of this world. He created Ahlul Bayt. And He created this universe so it can hold Ahlul Bayt. You know what Rasulullah comes and says? He says everything has a foundation. And the foundation of Islam is love for us, Ahlul Bayt. Foundation of Islam. It's not Allah created Nubuwwah, Imamah, Tawheed, and so on and so forth, and then He said these are five good individuals, let me make them a part of this religion. No, it didn't work like that. This is what the world fails to understand. They aren't something secondary. Neither are they something primary. They're the original. They're the substance in which Allah created this universe with. Allah says, مَا خَلَقْتُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. I created this universe with truth. Tell me, who was the man who He was with truth and truth was with him? Allah, for the love of Al-Muhammad, He created this universe. Therefore, to come and begin to look at Hussein before his birth. Why before his birth? Because you can't just study Hussein as a historian. You can't. It's an injustice to his life. You have to study the life of Hussein as a Muslim. That's the only way you can understand Hussein. Why? Because Hussein had the existence before his birth. He was a light under the throne of Allah. نور تحت عرش الله, written on the throne of Allah. Al-Hussein مصباح الهدى وسفينة النجاة. Before his birth. And then, after his martyrdom, who is Hussein after his martyrdom? Does Hussein have a role? And does he have a position? And does he have an existence after his martyrdom? Did Hussein die on the 10th of Muharram? Physically? 100%. Ideologically, Hussein was born on the 10th of Muharram. Physically, Abu Abdullah died on the 10th of Muharram. Physically, in the most ruthless of fashions. Ideologically, Hussein was born on the 10th of Muharram. That's why we thank Umar ibn Sa'ad and we curse Umar ibn Sa'ad. Why do we thank him and why do we curse him? We curse him because he deserves to be cursed. لعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت زيارة عاشوراء. Deserves to be cursed until infinity. Yet Hussein, or in other words, why do we thank him? We thank him because when he killed Abu Abdullah, he brought birth to his ideology. He brought birth to 21 million people crawling to the grave of Abu Abdullah saying, لو قطع قطعوا أرجلنا واليدين نأتيك زحفا سيدي يا Hussein. If they cut our arms and legs, we come crawling to you, Ya Hussein. Who brought birth to these mad human beings? Who brought birth to these Abbas-like human beings? Abbas, he would take off his armor when he would go onto the field. They tell him, you're crazy. Ajaninta ya Abbas? Have you gone mad? He says, very much so. حب الحسين أجنني. The love of Hussein has made me gone mad. We thank them and we curse them. For indeed when they cut the neck of Aba Abdullah, they thought the lava would cool down. You fool. When you mess around with a volcano, the lava comes out. They shook the volcano called Hussein, and lava came pouring out, and it will never stop pouring until Sahib al-Zaman comes. Therefore, Hussein today, what is he today? We look at, so that we can have a complete understanding of Hussein. Hussein before his birth and Hussein after his martyrdom. Calling this series Hussein Beyond Karbala. That's why when we put these pieces together, we'll begin to realize why one day Adam would come to Allah when Allah would teach him the names. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءِ. He taught Adam the names, which were the names of Ahlul Bayt, not the names of the fruits and the trees and the animals. Today you have people, he comes and he tells you when Allah taught Adam the names, he came and he told him this fruit is called a tomato, or vegetable called a tomato. This right here is called a cucumber. This animal is called a sheep. MashaAllah. Allah stops everything. He stops the rotation of the universe. He stops the angels so that he can tell Adam that this right here is called a cucumber. No. Allah taught Adam the names which this universe was based upon. Allah taught Adam the purpose of this existence, which is Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Adam would come to Allah. He would tell him, oh Allah, when you say Muhammad, I feel happy. When you say Ali, I feel happy. When you say Fatima, I feel jubilant as well. When you say Hassan, I'm filled with confidence. Ya Allah, I have one question which you can kindly answer. Why is it when I say Hussein, my heart becomes depressed? I become sad. My tears begin to pour down my cheeks. Why? Allah would begin to explain to him. People say, Majlis, bid'ah. Allah decided Majlis about Abdullah al-Hussein. He begins to tell him what happened and what will happen on the 10th of Muharram. That when you put these pieces together, you begin to see the true greatness of the Imam before Karbala and after Karbala. Well, now we realize why Adam would cry about him. We will know why Zakaria would one day turn to Allah and he would tell him, Ya Allah, Kaf Ha Ya Ain Sad, Surah Maryam. What does it stand for? Allah would reply to him, he would tell him, أما الكاف فهي كربلاء. What is the kaf, Ya Allah? Kaf is Karbala, our narration say. What is the ha? هلاك العترة الطاهرة, the ruining of the progeny of Rasulullah. What is the ya? Yazid ibn Muawiyah. What is the ayn? عطش الحسين في كربلاء, the thirst of Aba Abdullah in Karbala. What is the Sad? صبر الحسين على الأذى. The patience of Hussein on the trials and tribulations. Adam would cry. Zakaria would cry. Musa would cry. Isa would cry. Should I go through the 12 and connect you how each one of them would cry about Imam al-Hussein? Ali ibn Abi Talib narrations which we'll touch upon in upcoming nights, in which he foretells Karbala and cries and mourns about the musibah of Abu Abdullah. How can he not? When from a few ribs of Fatima he didn't leave his house, entire chest of Abu Abdullah was trampled upon. Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, Hussein would be mourning his problems, his tragedies. He would say, Hussein, don't cry. Why? Because La yawm ka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. There is no day like your day, O Aba Abdullah. Zayn al-Abidin, who would go into the butcher market, begins to cry after he asks the butcherer, did you give him some water? He says, yes, I did. This is what Islam teaches us. He would begin to cry. He would tell him, why do you cry? Did I do something wrong? He would say, no, you haven't done anything wrong, but I'm surprised that the sheep is given water and the grandson of Rasulullah is killed thirsty. Imam al-Baqir, who was there present in Karbala. Or should I go to Imam al-Sadiq, who when they would burn his house, he would come out crying. They would tell him, why do you cry? You guys are used to martyrdom, you're used to killing. Why do you cry? He would say, I don't cry because of fear. I cry because when they burnt our house, our ladies ran from tent to tent, from room to room. Therefore, why did you cry, Ibn Rasulullah? I cried because I remembered when the daughters of Muhammad would run from tent to tent on the 10th. Or should I go to Imam al-Kazim, who would bemoan the Imam? Imam al-Rida, he was on his deathbed, dying. He would say, take me down from my bed. Why? You're dying? What's the wisdom behind it? He would say, because Hussein died uncomfortably, I want to die uncomfortably. Or should I go to Imam al-Hadi, Imam al-Askari, or the 12th, who would his first, where would he go? He would go to Karbala, yes? From Medina to Mecca to Karbala, then Jerusalem. In Karbala, the Imam would open up the shrine of the Imam. He would take out a 6-month-old baby, turning it to Allah, saying, Allahumma ma dhanbu hadha at-tifl ar-radi'. Oh Allah, what is the guilt of this 6-month-old baby? Prophets, Imams. Ismail ibn Hizqil, a prophet. They say his people would rip the skin off his face. Jibreel comes to him, he tells him, Allah offers you help, would you want help? He would say no. Why? Because I want to feel some of the pain that Hussein ibn Ali would go through. Prophet from Bani Israel. What I say, if there's one tragedy that brain-boggled Ahlul Bayt, it must have been the tragedy of the daughter of Ali ibn Abi Talib. It must have been the tragedy of that lady whose shadow wasn't seen in Karbala. You know that? In Medina. Hussein to one side would walk, Abbas to another, Hassan to another, Ali ibn Abi Talib before her. Her shadow wasn't seen. I say, Ya Zainab, it's fine if your shadow was seen in Karbala. Why were your cheeks slapped, Why would they come and burn your tents? You know, one man would see Sahib al-Zaman in the dream. He would tell him, Oh Imam, you mention in ziyarah, لأبكين عليك صباحا ومساء. Yes, until he says, ولا أبكين عليك بدل الدموع لأنجلنك صباحا, until he says, ولا أبكين عليك بدل الدموع دما. I'll shed for you tears of blood. Who are you referring to, O Sahib al-Zaman? Was it the musibah of Qasim? He says, no, if Qasim was here, he would cry as well. Was it the musibah of Akbar? No, if Akbar was here, he would cry as well. Was it the musibah of Imam al-Abbas? No, if al-Abbas was here, he would cry as well. He would tell him, who were you crying about? He would tell him, I cry upon my Zainab, I cry upon the musibah of my Zainab. Imam al-Sajjad, they would come to him after Masadi Karbala. They would tell him, Oh Imam, eat your food. Oh Imam, why is your food mixed with your tears? Why? He would tell him, Oh Abu Hamza, may Allah reward you. Yeah, let me ask ask you a question. Did you ever see before Karbala our ladies running from tent to tent screaming Ya Ali Ya Allah? Did you ever see our ladies taken as captives to the land of Sham? You know Zainab alayhi salam, she would enter the land of Sham. She would see a lady who looked familiar sitting on the throne. She would turn to Kulthum. She would tell her, Kulthum, do you know who that lady is? She would say, no, who is it? She would say, that's Hind. Hind was a servant in the household of Ali. She would tell her, that is Hind? She would say, yes it is. Zainab would pass by the throne of Hind. Hind would ask her, oh ladies, where do you come from? She would tell her, I come from Karbala, yet we all originally were in Medina. She would say, why did you, she would come down from her throne. She would tell her, oh Hind, why did you come down from your throne? Zainab now, Hind now knows, Zainab knows her name. She would say, why is it that you came down from your throne, oh Hind? She would say, I come down from my throne because of the love I have for the people of Medina. Tell me, who do you know in Medina? I know Abbas, I know Hussain. Who else do you know? I know Zainab. Do you have any information about these individuals? She would tell her, if you want Abbas, go find him without arms next to the river. If you want to find Hussain, go into that palace and find the head of his head on the table before your husband. Tell me about Zainab. Zainab would teach him Quran. Allahu Akbar, I say, how much did Zainab change that Hind didn't recognize the face of Zainab? She would tell her, if you ask me about Zainab, it is I, Zainab, before you. What happened to you, my master? What happened to you, Sayyidati Mawlati? She would say, the hadith says, Hind would take the rock, she would bash it on her head, she falls unconscious. She would wake up, she runs into the palace of her husband. He would tell her, put your hijab on. She would say, how do you care about my hijab when the daughters of Rasulullah are left without it? Oh Allah, by the neck of Hussain, oh Allah, by the hands of Abu Fadl, oh Allah, by the screams and the sighs of Zainab, oh Allah, by the tears of Sukaina and Ruqayya, oh Allah, by the blood that gushed from the neck of Ali al-Asghar, we ask you, Ya Allah, to make this Muharram a Muharram in which we truly see Hussain in the light he is meant to be seen. We ask you, Ya Allah, to allow us to see Hussain alayhi salam as the Prophet saw him and as the Imam saw him, so that we can leave this Muharram having a new, refreshed and more realistic perception of Aba Abdullah al-Hussain. Let us recite Amma Yujib 5 times with the loudest of our voices. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibu al-mudhtar idha da'ah wa yakshifu as-su'. Amma yujibu al-mudhtar idha da'ah wa yakshifu as-su'. Amma يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. اللهم شافي كل مريض بحق مريض كربلاء زين العابدين. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين واخذل الكفر والمنافقين. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. And to answer our prayers we will say Surah Al-Fatiha before salawat upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.